Hey, Bills Mafia. We know there's only one topic every day. All Bills, all the time. And now Matt Beauvais and Sal Capaccio are going really deep, talking Bills all year long, because it's always game day in Buffalo.
Well, after Joe Brady's introductory press conference, I tweeted on X at Sal Sports, so what did you think of Joe Brady's introductory press conference? I got a lot of responses. We're into the hundreds of responses.
Yeah.
And I have to tell you, Matt Beauvais, a lot of Bills fans who were not feeling that great a week ago seem to be feeling a lot better. So I'll ask you, what did you think about Joe Brady's introductory press conference?
Want to hear the headline to the column I just posted at WKBW.com?
Yes,
Subtle plug. You only get one chance at a first impression, and Buffalo Bills head coach Joe Brady made the most of his. I agree with the hundreds of people who have commented and responded to your tweet. I think Joe Brady did a very nice job today. I was very impressed, and it kind of reinforced itself. I actually got a text from my wife. She was at work today, but she had a chance to go back and listen to the press conference, and she was like, I think Joe Brady killed it today. And I was like, I think he did a very nice job. It's hard to win a press conference. It's pretty easy to lose one, but I think this was much closer to a win than a loss. I think he had a lot of nice things to say, and we can get into this. I also like the stuff that he didn't say. I don't think he said any of the phony nonsense that we sometimes hear. I promise I'm going to work harder than anybody who's ever had this job, and I'm going to deliver this city what you've been waiting for. We didn't get any of the cheesy nonsense, which I appreciate.
So what's interesting is, to a lot of people on the outside who saw Joe Brady, I think for the first time today, right now, I know he talks every Monday during the season. Most Bills fans probably never really heard Joe Brady talk other than a soundbite here or there.
Did you read it's like you read my article, because I also said that more people heard Joe Brady talk today than every one of his press conference prior combined.
That's right, because we know how this works. We get to hear him once a week. Coordinators talk once a week. We're in the room with them. We've both had conversations with Joe Brady on the record, off the record, in the room, at the stadium, whatever it is. We've gotten to know him a little bit. This is the first time a lot of people got to really see and hear Joe Brady.
Yeah.
And I think if the first time you hear him, you could take a couple things, which are, okay, man, this guy's emotional and he's super energetic, which we all knew. You could also go, man, he's really like getting emotional, and I don't know about all this. And I will tell you, take all of that. That's fine. The one thing that I came away with knowing him, it was genuine.
Yeah.
What you got from Joe Brady today, whether you loved it, hated it, didn't like it, anything, it was genuine. What we saw today is the Joe Brady you and I know.
Yes, I wholeheartedly agree. Sorry, I was looking at my Twitter, whatever the word is. I agree. I thought he did a very nice job kind of showcasing that. I think that for him, it was almost at times difficult to not get overly emotional, which I do not take as like a sign of weakness or anything like that. I think that shows authenticity. I think that I was actually positioned in an interesting spot at the press conference, completely just by happenstance. I was sitting directly behind his wife, and that also meant directly behind Josh Allen. So when he was talking to the players and Josh Allen and his wife, he was kind of directly looking at me, and I could see him, like the eyes starting to well up, and it looked like he was about to break down. I also specifically did ask him a question during the press conference. And I sometimes ask this to people who have reached like big milestones or who had a big moment of like, who is the first person you thought about when you found out you became the head coach of the Buffalo Bills?
You asked the lottery question. The lottery question, like, hey, you won a lottery. Who's the first person you're telling? What are you doing with it? No, but you did it a different way. No, go ahead. No, in a different way. Oh, really?
I've never heard of the lottery question.
Okay. Well, it's the kind of, if someone wins a lottery, well, it's not really, it's the contract question. I would say it this way. You sign your big contract. What's the first thing you're buying? Right?
Oh, sure. Honestly,
but for you, I get it. No, it's a great question. You were sitting a little bit, by the way, I was sitting behind Terry Pagula, by the way, but anyway, go ahead. Yeah.
Well, so actually a little background here. The reason I'm always interested in that question is because one of the best responses I've ever heard in a scrum, like just random interview, was from coincidentally Jack Eichel when he was named captain of the Sabres. And I was like, when you found out, who did you think about? Who did you talk to? And he got so emotional and broke down. And that's Jack Eichel, right? That's not a person who was Mr. Emotional while he was here and talking about his family and his father and thinking about his parents and the journey to get to that point. So I was like, maybe this will be something good. And it was still a good answer, but yeah, it was literally right there. I think you saw the emotion firsthand today. I also think you saw the dedication firsthand. And I liked the
Tell everybody what he said, by the way.
He said, I think about my family, and I think about all the sacrifices that they have to make for me to be able to do this, and that's not lost on me. And I basically want to make them proud. And I think that's a very commendable thing to say. But I think the thing that I liked the most about today was the accountability aspect of it. He did not shy away at any point from bearing some of the blame for this team's shortcomings and understanding that if he is going to have success as a head coach, they need to be better on offense.
I liked also, and I thought this resonated and it was important to do, and he did it early, recognizing Sean McDermott. Because I think this team, this franchise, got criticized heavily for not doing that well enough last week.
I agree.
And calculated or not calculated, what Joe Brady said about Sean McDermott, I think went a long way to repair that bridge a little bit, to bridge that gap, or to repair that, what people felt about that last week from the Buffalo Bills and how his dismissal went down.
Yeah, I have it transcribed right here because it's actually also included in the story that I wrote. I want to thank and recognize Sean McDermott. In 2022, 4 years ago, Coach McDermott gave me an opportunity of a lifetime. I had an opportunity to come here, coach for the Buffalo Bills, and coach Josh Allen. I took immense pride in that. Over the past 4 years, I've learned a tremendous amount of things from Coach McDermott, how to lead and the resilience standards. The past 9 years in this organization matter. I'm understanding of that. I'm appreciative of the opportunity to be part of it. They matter deeply and they deserve respect. I'm so grateful for Coach McDermott. I love Coach McDermott. I think that was a very strong statement from him. And then he actually went on to say that he is coming into a much better situation because of the foundation laid by Sean McDermott and his staff, and that he recognizes and appreciates that. So I agree with you. I think he doubled down on that. And while some people that might not matter to, I think that does matter to a lot of people, especially the ones who think that, Sean McDermott was wrongly fired.
Yeah, and I'll go and read, and you just said it, what he said, and I transcribed it as well because I thought it was very, very interesting. He said the last 9 years of this organization matter. And that mattered to me, that he said that. Like, you're not just coming in here and going, everything we've done, we got to scrap and do something different. The last 9 years mattered. The last 9 years of building that foundation from Sean McDermott mattered. And I thought that was very important for him to do. That said, he also made it clear he has his own vision, his own mentality. Connected teams win. He said connection. He said communication, loving one another. These are things that he believes in, accountability and love. I mean, to a lot of people who've been around football our whole lives, like me, and you have as well, and I've been in the coaching circles, like the love of each other is a common theme in football that people have. And when you're a real football person, you talk about the love for your teammate, the love you have for one another. And you played hockey. It's the same thing in a locker room there. No doubt about it. But at that time, he was also talking to the people in the room you mentioned, Josh Allen, Dalton Kincaid, Spencer Brown, Max Harrison. They were all sitting right there. And I do believe that Joe Brady has a certain connection with these players, especially the offensive players, because of his role that he's had, that I'm not saying Sean McDermott didn't have, but it's a totally different kind of connection.
Remember the conversation we had about this team being too uptight at times?
Mm-hmm.
Did you see the quote from Alec Anderson?
I was there. Tell me which one.
So Nick Sabato.
Oh, yeah. The one where the one where he swore.
Yeah, are we allowed to say that? We're allowed to say that on a podcast.
I don't know. You could say, yeah, it's yeah, for sure. Go ahead.
Okay. This is according to Nick Sabato from the Niagara Gazette. Now,
I was standing there when he said it.
Okay.
I remember him saying it. I'm going to, before you say it, I called WGR and I said, hey, I just sent you the sound from Alec Anderson. Just be aware that he said this. So you might have to bleep it out for radio.
Okay. He wants us to know, this is a quote, he wants us to know that we don't have to have our blank holes so tight around him all the time. We can go walk around and be our personalities. That is a very powerful and maybe telling quote from Alec Anderson. It's not intended to be a shot at Sean McDermott or the previous staff, but it kind of paints a picture of some of the things that we have been talking about for the last few episodes of, listen, Sean was a very, very, very good coach, but the vibe and how uptight things felt at times, I think is going to be very different with Joe Brady. And Josh Allen alluded to it a little bit too when we talked to him today, and we'll get to that. There's a lot of stuff to talk about. Josh Allen was like, we have known in the offense when this guy is leading a meeting that he loves us and will fight for us. And I'm excited for the defense and the special teams to see that, because when you see that firsthand, you buy into it. And I think you want to play harder for a guy like that. And I thought that was also pretty powerful.
For sure. And I think I've said it on this podcast. If not, I've definitely said it on the radio. I'm a big Sean McDermott fan. I think he's a really good coach. I think he did a great job in Buffalo. I think you and I both have a very good relationship with Coach McDermott as well. The one thing about Sean McDermott that I think goes back many years that people have said about him that could be looked at as a negative or a criticism, it doesn't have to be, is does he see the forest through the trees sometimes, right? Which is he's so detail oriented. He's so much on top of all the little details that does are you allowed to breathe and have the big picture part of it, right? I think that kind of speaks to maybe this. And that's why I say, look, now I'm not telling you Joe Brady won't be on top of details, but will he be really on top of everything that might not matter to him as much that mattered to Sean McDermott, right?
Yeah.
I mean, look, things inside the building, on the walls, the artwork, I don't care. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just giving little, like maybe being hyperbolic here when I say it, but that's what we're talking about.
The halls that we are and aren't allowed to walk down because
100%.
Like little
I
things.
thought about that. Do you think that that'll change? I don't know.
I don't know. It was like for background, everybody.
Yeah.
So where the media room is and where the field house are connected by a hallway. We have not really been able to use that hallway for several years because of some of the messaging on the walls that was very strategic by Sean McDermott. And I understand this is their domain. This is their sandbox. When we are in their sandbox, we play by their rules because it is their sandbox. But, it's funny because it's like a 20-yard walk, or it is like I don't know, eighth of a mile walk outside in the middle of the cold.
Right.
And I thought about that today. I was like, wait, there's a new head coach.
I thought about it too.
I think this is going to be a nice blend of a fresh, clean slate for a lot of people inside that building. And I also think that there are going to be some principles and foundational pieces that stay the same. And that's why, I said I was uninspired by the decision.
Mm-hmm.
I feel a little differently about it today. I don't feel completely different because I don't want to put too much stake into one 45-minute press conference, but I do feel like he did a really good job of saying the right things today.
Okay, how did Joe Brady get the job? What I found very interesting, fascinating to me, like I love this kind of stuff, the little, like what goes into these details. What's it like being in these rooms with these interviews? And I thought it was super interesting that here's Brandon Beane, who's never done this before, okay? I asked him after, hey, were you a part at all in Carolina of any hirings of coaches? He said, I wasn't in the room. He would do background information. He would talk to people about, guys when they would bring him in. So this is his first time hiring a new coach, right? Because remember, he came in after Sean. And what he did in this situation was he had it really set up where Joe Brady came in and they told him, we're going to basically not know you.
Yeah.
Where I actually, that surprised me, Matt. What I thought was, okay, Joe Brady comes in, you know him, you can start from there. Okay, Joe, you've been here 4 years. What did you like? What did you not like? Where would you build off this? What do you think we did wrong? That's not what they did. What they did was they brought him in as if he was Grant Udinsky, as if he was Lou Anarumo, and saying, we don't know anything about you. Let's start from the beginning. Hi, I'm Brandon Beane. You're Joe Brady. Tell me about your life and your coaching experience and what your vision is for a football team. I thought that was fascinating.
It also goes a little bit to what we said in the last podcast we did after they hired Joe Brady, that once again here in Western New York, people have been hypercritical about the decision, and understandably so. Like, you are and should be allowed to be critical if you do not like this hire. But from the outside, it felt very different than it did on the inside because of the resume. And we were like, if we saw this team hire somebody with that resume from a different team, you would go, that's absolutely the best person that you could possibly hire for this job. That's not the case, and that's not the reality of the situation. But I did think that was interesting. And actually, it was one of the first questions of the press conference. I asked Brandon Beane, when did you know Joe Brady was your guy? And I thought I might get he gave us this answer during the meeting, and that stuck in the back of our heads. He went through the entire process, and he also went on to say, we interviewed 9 candidates, and this was the only internal candidate that we interviewed. So the math tells you it's actually a little bit of a surprise that we went with the 1 internal as opposed to the 8 on the outside. And we're kind of surprised we did because it was also the first one that we did. But they said, like, they had a short list, and they kind of kept going back to it. Then he elaborated a little bit more. When they finished their final interview, which I believe was with Nate Scheelhaus, I think that was their final interview. He's like, we sat in the room and we thought it was Joe Brady, but we also knew that it was late at night and we didn't want to make a decision based off of a gut feeling. So we all slept on it and we gathered around the next morning. And then we actually did another interview with Joe virtually because they were still in Florida. I'm sure Joe is still up here. And then that's when they ultimately decided he was their guy. And then they went forward with it. And then he shared a story about how like Terry basically offered him the job and on the call, but he was like, I still got to figure out a contract with his agent. Like we got stuff that we need to figure out, but I did appreciate that element of it because I do think that that's something a lot of people have been curious about.
Yeah, even so much so where they said they got into details of what does a Monday after a game look like? Tuesday after a game? What does lunch? What time are you going to eat lunch? What does the opening of training camp look like? We're going away for training camp. How do you approach going away? And these are things that Brandon Beane said he also talked with other candidates about. And what I appreciated from Brandon today was him telling how much he learned. Like, man, I didn't realize how much I could get from other organizations, and people who've been in other organizations. Josh Allen said the same thing today, basically. I asked him what he learned, and he said the same thing, which is how many like different things, different pieces of other coaches, other organizations coming from there. And what I thought was interesting about Josh when he met with us afterwards, one of my big takeaways was he said sitting in that room, he was really bringing a current player's perspective, which is, hey, there were things that were said. I'm like, yeah, the people making the decision might not think that matters. That matters. Or the people making the decisions might think that matters. That doesn't matter. So that was kind of more his role versus just saying, hey, I like this guy or not like this guy.
He was kind of like the conduit to the locker room. Like he was the connecting tissue to like, it wasn't just him being there as Josh Allen. It was him being there as a representation of the players. And I think that if you asked all of the guys in that room, including the 53 and the practice squad and some of the other staff members, who is the best person we can put in that situation, they would all say it's Josh Allen because he is the heartbeat of this team. So I'm sure that played a factor into it as well of like, well, this is the player's perspective on things. And Josh really leaned into the fact today that he did not get Joe Brady the job. Joe Brady earned this job himself, and he is just happy with that decision because he has seen firsthand what Joe Brady has meant to him and to some of his other teammates in the offense. And, then he started to get into the numbers a little bit. If you look at the analytics, if you look at the numbers, we've been no lower than third and this, and this. And, we feel like we've still got room to grow there. So I think that there was a lot of information and a lot of encouraging things heard and said today from all of the people really that we talked to, mostly from Joe Brady, but also from Brandon Beane, from Josh Allen, even like Dalton Kincaid. Like Dalton Kincaid seemed very, very excited. All the players that were there, like they were there for a reason, right? Because they wanted to be there to support their guy. And I'm sure all of the players we saw there probably think very favorably of Joe Brady.
Obviously there's more to get to with the meat on the bones. Let's just get a couple of big little nuggets here from what you're talking about. Dalton Kincaid not going to need surgery on his PCL. He had a torn PCL he played through. He's not going to need surgery. It's really just more about recovery at this point for Dalton Kincaid. That's really good news that, he's in a spot where he feels good enough about that. And then Josh Allen, we do know, had surgery on his, fifth metatarsal, I think it is, in his foot. He said if he had a game, he could still play, but they got it cleaned up. It shouldn't impact anything this offseason. He was on crutches, but anything you want to add on all that?
No, just that in the hallway that we were referring to a couple minutes ago, I saw Josh Allen in that hallway walking towards us. And this was well before the press conference started. And I was like, I'm pretty sure that's Josh Allen, and I'm pretty sure he's on crutches and in a boot. And because Josh Allen is so savvy with this stuff, I thought he was way in the distance. I was like, I wonder if this guy's going to take off the boot and take off the crutches and change his clothes and come out to the press conference so nobody knows that he's in a boot or in crutches, because I would not put something like that past him. He didn't, and he hobbled down the hallway, and I got a video because I saw him come in, and I posted it, and it spread like wildfire because it's Josh Allen and he is injured. He certainly leaned into the fact that he does not think the recovery is going to eat into any of his offseason plans, whether that be with football or that be with becoming a father sometime in the next few months.
Which is something he spoke about quite a bit today.
Which is something that he did speak about today. So, I think that the Josh Allen stuff, and you never want to see your quarterback walking down a hallway in a boot and on crutches and notably in some discomfort. It felt like, though, Like we knew he was playing through stuff. I don't know if we knew the severity of what he was playing through, but I think we kind of got that firsthand look at it today.
We also got a second chance to hear from Joe Brady. So we didn't know. I didn't know. Did you know he was going to come out for a second time?
No, I didn't know.
Okay.
I was in the room though. So it was
me too. And what happened was, so everybody knows, we knew we were going to hear from Josh afterwards. We were told that as a media, hey, Josh is going to talk to us. And then I was actually on my way back home. I'm like, all right, I'm going to go home. I'm going to write my story and go on WGR. And then all of a sudden, hey, here comes Joe Brady. He came back in the room, sat down at the podium just for really us in the local media to have a little more one-on-one time or 1-on-20 time, I guess, because of the people in the room. And that's when a couple questions surfaced about Keon Coleman to both Josh and Joe Brady.
Definitely. The Keon stuff is notable.
Yeah. And both really had Keon's back, which I would not expect anything else, to be honest with you. But the way it was presented from Joe Brady, which was really interesting, was he said the best thing that could happen to Keon Coleman is me being his head coach. How did you take that response?
I took it as still, I think, the posturing answer of you have a player who may or may not be disgruntled, who you do not know if they are going to be on the team. So you do not want to make it seem like no other team should want him if you think that you are going to move on. But he said several times, Joe Brady said several times, Keon Coleman is going to be in Buffalo several times. So they might think collectively as a staff, one of two things. Joe Brady getting there will do a lot for Keon Coleman, or the return is not worth moving on from the player and just hoping that you unlock something. You don't know what that is, but he said his best football is ahead of him and that nobody is giving up on him. And I mean, Josh Allen said, I still believe in zero.
I still believe in zero.
I mean, it was almost odd how much they were digging their heels in on Keon Coleman. They're like, look what he was able to do in training camp last year. Look at all of the time that we were talking about Keon Coleman in this next step. So I don't know if this is a philosophical change of where they're going to use Keon or how he's going to be utilized, or if there was some sort of friction with the previous coaching staff and the player. The other thing that was interesting that Matt Perino asked as a follow-up to this was about the comments from Terry Pagula last week, and Joe Brady admitting that he was one of the coaches that was kind of standing and banging the table for them to draft Keon Coleman, and that he believes in the talent. So he didn't have to bear that, but he took it and was like, I am taking this because I think that I can get more out of this player. And that's why I wanted him 2 years ago when we drafted him.
The other coach that I believe wanted to have Keon Coleman on the team is wide receivers coach Adam Henry. We know now he is gone.
Yes.
He is now with the Pittsburgh Steelers. I say that because I know that Adam Henry was at Keon Coleman's pro day, and I believe that he was, somebody that vouched for Keon Coleman. Either way, he's no longer a member of the Buffalo Bills staff. He is going to be with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Changes are coming to the staff.
Miami Dolphins? Adam Henry?
Jamil Adai is Miami Dolphins.
I think Adam Henry might also be the Miami Dolphins.
No, that's Steelers.
Is it Steelers?
Yeah, Adam Henry went to the Steelers, according to 2 days ago when it was reported.
Yes. Okay.
Adam Henry went to the Steelers. Jamil Adai, defensive backs. Let's just stay on offense real quick, though.
Yeah.
And then we're going to get to the defense because there's a couple news and items about that. On the offensive side, Adam Henry, no longer the wide receivers coach. We know also Aaron Kromer has retired. The Bills have, and they're going to, it's not made, I think, official by the team yet, hire Pat Meyer. Now, Pat Meyer did work with Joe Brady in Carolina. However, I want to tell you, and I want to tell people, a big reason why the Bills are bringing Pat Meyer on is because Pat Meyer worked under Aaron Kromer in Buffalo in 2015 and 16, and a lot of his language and teaching and style is very much from the Aaron Kromer methods and styles, and that will translate well to the current Bills offensive line. It's not just because he knew Joe Brady. It's because actually they want to keep a little bit of, hey, Aaron Kromer did a great job. We're going to stay with that kind of teaching and methods and style that'll translate to our guys and the current roster we have right now. The Bills do not currently have an offensive coordinator in place, although the offensive coordinator will not call plays. It's still obviously a job that Joe Brady's going to have to, bring somebody in for that. I would not be surprised if Ronald Curry was elevated.
Yeah.
They could also bring somebody else in, obviously.
Ronald Curry, I believe, interviewed for the Jets offensive coordinator vacancy. So I know that there's at least some other outside interest there. We know that some, or at least one, but in that second interview we did with Joe Brady, he was asked, are you retaining any of your coaches? And he said yes, but would not say names because I think he's also trying to negotiate with other coaches, and that would have a direct impact on who they retain and who they don't retain. So some people in that building are staying, but defensively, it feels like it might be an entire overhaul on that side of the ball. And that's a nice segue to the other thing that I wanted to talk about. He, in the second interview, was asked, is defensive coordinator the most important decision you are going to have to make? And he said, no, all of my hires are going to be important decisions. But in the initial press conference, he shed some light on the type of defense that he wanted. I have it transcribed right here. A key element of what I'm looking for on defense is making sure that we have the versatility to be able to change in personnel and get a lot of different people, different spots. Similar to what we do offensively, I don't believe offensive football and defensive football should be different mindsets, but we can understand as we approach a game plan that there's a way to win every game. And as long as we have versatility and different types of pieces that we can find a way to win and put stress on both the offense and onto the defense. Am I read between the lines here? They want Jim Leonard.
Well, I think they want a Jim Leonard type for sure. And I think they want Jim Leonard. I think Raheem Morris fits that mold as well.
Yeah, I do too. I do too. Do you have a preference? You have a preference between the two? The more established?
I think I like Leonard. I think I like pairing a young, innovative, new coach to getting his first crack at it. I know that this is not a team that, needs a reset or anything. That's not what I'm saying, but I like that. I like Raheem Morris. So a lot of things I've heard about Raheem Morris over the last few years have been very, very good. A lot of good reviews, the way he runs a program, the way he runs his defense. It didn't work out for him as a head coach. I know that. But I would be okay with either. I would lean Jim Leonard because coming from the Rex Ryan tree, coming from Vance Joseph's defense where they got after it with sex, he's been in the college game. He understands, I think, the guys coming in. He's not far removed from the college game. So I think that Jim Leonard would fit.
Let's give you this little piece of info too. Today, Joe Brady mentioned one person's name, maybe more than anybody else. It was probably Josh Allen, number one. The person he referenced the second most was Sean Payton, and how much he learned from Sean Payton. He said at one point, I got a master's degree at Penn State, but I got a PhD in football in New Orleans when working with Sean Payton. Sean Payton, as we know, in Denver. Jim Leonard coming from Denver, but they already have a defensive coordinator who's very good in Vance Joseph. They are not moving on from Vance Joseph. If they think that this is a big opportunity for Jim Leonard to take the next step, he will be checking with Sean Payton to see if he is ready for this guy. Like if this guy is ready to take a bigger responsibility, because there's really no upward growth potential in Denver right now. So I'm sure Joe Brady is really leaning into the Sean Payton, even though that, they played each other in the playoffs this year. Yeah. They are competing teams. He is going to be like, do you think this guy is ready to take the next step? And if Sean Payton gives him the stamp of approval, I bet that's a hire they make.
Jim Leonard also interviewing in Baltimore though. So,
is he?
Yeah, that was reported this morning. So we'll see where that goes. He did interview with the Chargers, but they did not hire him. They hired somebody else, which I thought meant, okay, well, he's going to Buffalo, right? Well, maybe not. He's interviewing with Baltimore as well. Did you see, by side note, did you see the stories on Sean Payton today?
No, I did not.
So Sean Payton's kind of in it right now in Denver. Two things. He fired his offensive coordinator, Mike Lombardo, which means maybe Davis Webb gets a promotion. But Mike Lombardo, basically his quote was, yeah, I know when he gets in those moods where he's got to blame somebody, and I kind of read the tea leaves.
Oh,
okay. And then on top of it, even more crazy, Bo Nick said, I don't know why Sean Payton said I had multiple surgeries. He doesn't know that, and he shouldn't have said that.
Really?
Yes.
Ooh, wow.
Oh, yeah. It's on. It's on in Denver right now with Sean Payton, man.
How about Sean Payton as the Bills' offensive coordinator?
No way. No, that would be too much of an ego to put into the Bills building.
I know.
Looking over Joe Brady's shoulder.
All right. Do you think, really quick, we talked about Jim Leonard, we talked about Raheem Morris. If Jim Schwartz is truly that unhappy in Cleveland, or is that too big of a personality to add to the staff?
I don't think it's too big of a personality. I think it's actually a guy that I would welcome. And he's done a really good job. He was in Buffalo, but as Mike Shope correctly pointed out when I was on WGR with him earlier today before we recorded this, he said, Jim Schwartz actually left Buffalo under similar circumstances. He didn't get the job. Rex Ryan did, and he wasn't happy he didn't get the job. So he left, and that's true. Little different though here, I think. Time, it's 10 years later, and it's not that he's up for the head job, but That's why he wants out of Cleveland. He is under contract. Usually these things get resolved by the team basically saying, okay, that's fine. We don't want a disgruntled employee, whatever. We're going to get rid of you and, you can walk out the door, but maybe it would take a draft pick or something to prime away if you wanted them that badly. I'm not really sure.
Yeah.
I would welcome Jim Leonard. I'm sorry, it's Jim Schwartz. I think I'd rather have Jim Leonard at this point, but Jim Schwartz is a very, very viable name. You didn't have to even read the quote to me though, because I know you did, because it's notable. Just by the names we've heard, Jim Leonard, Raheem Morris, it's clear what Joe Brady wants in the defense.
Yeah.
Joe Brady wants an aggressive defense, and every coach says that. Every coach says aggressive.
Yeah.
But these are two guys who come from backgrounds of sacking the quarterback, getting after the quarterback, creativity and pressure.
Yeah.
Man-to-man defenses, right? What Sean McDermott's defenses, Sean McDermott and Bobby Babbitt, who we know now is also going to Green Bay, they are known for what? Hey, sound fundamentals, no explosives, keep everything in front of you, tackle hard, live to fight another day, buckle down in the red zone. Now, all of that has worked well in a lot of situations. Where it didn't work well is in these critical moments against these really, great quarterbacks in some cases like Mahomes or Burrow, and they didn't get the quarterback on the ground. I think what we've seen, what we've heard over the last 48 to 72 hours or so has been a clear signal that Joe Brady feels they have to have more in that department.
You obviously do your other podcast with Eric Turner, Cover One. He posted a chart today, a side-by-side chart that I thought was so interesting of the Bills' defensive ranks during the regular season and the Bills' defensive ranks in the playoffs. And it was from True Media. I don't know if you saw this, but
No.
it basically illustrates that in the regular season, the Bills have a very good defense. In the postseason, they have as bad of a defense as you could have among the qualifying teams. One of the areas where that is most clearly displayed is its sack rate. The sack rate during the regular season is 7.6%. That is ninth best in the NFL. The sack rate during the playoffs, 4.6%, the worst amongst qualifying teams. So obviously there are fewer teams in the playoffs. It is the worst possible rank it could be. You could also say that with so many other categories here. Opponent's point per game goes from 19.9 in the regular season to 24.8 in the playoffs. You're playing against better teams. It's natural that some of these numbers will be worse because you are going against better teams in the playoffs. But to go from one of the best to maybe the worst in some of these categories is really, really remarkable. And I do think that is a big layer to all of this, even though the defense has been solid. If you're going to have a defensive-minded head coach, that defense better consistently show up in the playoffs, and they have not been doing that in Buffalo, which is why I think there are big changes coming soon.
My last point that I'll say, and it relates to all of this before we head on out of here.
Yep.
We heard a lot of the word alignment, right? Collaboration, alignment.
So alignment.
So I asked today, my question was, what do you mean by that, right?
Yeah.
Take a fan into that. What does alignment look like to you? We're not talking about alignment where the offensive guard lines up, by the way, or the wide receiver in a slot. Alignment between the front office and the head coach. Everything we're talking about with defense and versatility and everything that Joe Brady said, I'm thinking in my head is what's happening here is, you tell me if you think I'm wrong. I think Brandon Beane believes that he has given this team the right kind of front seven and versatility that should be doing those things we just talked about better than they have been. And that Sean McDermott's scheme necessarily hasn't been necessarily as conducive to doing those things. Joe Brady sees that with Brandon Beane now and goes, okay, he's been bringing these people in. Now it's time to actually put that to use the way it should be put to use.
I think the way you summarized that and explained that is exactly how they are envisioning that.
Yes.
I do, though, hope that they as a front office do some self-reflection and go, well, what do we need to tweak to make sure that we are putting these people in a position to have success, because it hasn't always worked out. And that's a conversation we have had so many times on this podcast. Why do the free agents not fit sometimes? Why is the hit rate in the draft maybe not as high as you would like it to be? So I agree with you, but I also don't want to give a pass completely to the front office.
Fair.
Because
Totally
I
fair.
do think that there are times when they could have done a better job. Like, I know we've already talked about Keon, but like, once again, this is offense, not defense. How different is this offense if Ladd McConkey is the pick and not Keon Coleman, right? Like,
right, sure.
That's very likely a front office decision. So there's validity to what everybody is saying, but it also doesn't just, it's got to go both ways.
No doubt about it. So next step is to see who some of the hires are coming in, and Matt and I are going to be on top of that.
Yeah, and it sounds like, I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm sorry. Yep. One thing, too, my mom listens to every episode of the podcast, and she was like, sometimes you guys cut each other off. It's because we're not in the same place. So there's a little bit of an internet delay. So if we're ever cutting each other off. We also are
Italian and talk a lot, so we just talk over each other.
She's like, sometimes you cut off Sal, and I'm like, well, it's a delay. So I don't know if he's going to start talking. Exactly. So nobody's being rude here. I think we might have another chance to talk to Bean soon as kind of like a final year-end thing, because normally we do that, but it was completely overshadowed and overtaken by the decision to move on from Sean McDermott. But we didn't ask any of the football questions because it was not the time or place. But I think we would like to know, are you going to give Dalton a fifth-year option? What's going on with Dorian Strong? What do you think about—
By the way, he did indicate that today. You saw that, right? I don't know if you were there at the time.
No.
Oh, my apologies. Sorry. That's great that you brought that up. Thank you. Brandon Bean basically said they're giving Dalton Kincaid the fifth-year option.
Did you know that? They're giving Dalton Kincaid a fifth-year option?
He basically said it. He said, I don't see why we wouldn't do that, is what he said.
Yeah. Okay.
And here's the thing about this, folks. If you're like, why would they do that? He's been hurt. It's $8.7 million. That's like the 17th ranked tight end in the league. Why would you not do that? And that means you're under contract for 2 more years, and you get time to figure out a long-term deal and see where he goes with that. So I think it's the right decision.
So, yeah, we've got a lot of football things that we need to figure out. What do they do with David Edwards? What do they do with Connor McGovern? What do they do with Terrell Bernard? Does he stay in his position? Do they move him to a different position? Is Tre'Davious White come back? So there's a lot of football things that I think we want some answers on. So hopefully we are able to get with Bean in the next week or two and be able to bring you some clarity there. And then defensive coordinator, I don't think warrants an emergency podcast, but then maybe the next time we do one of these, we'll have some more coaches to talk about.
Nate Hackett is back in the AFC East. Hired by the Miami Dolphins as quarterback's coach.
I thought you meant with the Bills.
No. Sorry, that was a bad pause on my part. That was a bad pause.
That was a bad pause. That was not a great, but you that pause felt like an eternity.
He is in the AFC East with the Miami Dolphins. Jamil Adai reportedly to the Miami Dolphins as well. Chris Tabor, Bill's special teams coach. That's going to be an important hire for Joe Brady as well. He's with the Miami Dolphins. Adam Henry going to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Aaron Cromer retiring. A lot of moving parts going on here. We'll be on top of it at Matt_Bove at Sal Sports. Follow him, watch him on TV, WKBW TV channel 7. You got me in the radio, WGR Sports Radio 550. You got our guy Mike Robier producing the show. Thanks a lot for watching. Thanks a lot for listening. We'll be back next time.